Come on in, everybody. I am Justin with the Tennessee Holler. tnholler.com is where you can find us at the TN Holler on Twitter and Facebook and Instagram. Thanks to your support, we have 10 hollers hollering all throughout the state. Your small dollar monthly donations make that possible. If you need a lawyer, Abby Rubenfeld. If you're buying a home, Elisa Parker. And if you need some jewelry, AJ Martin. Wanted to jump on here and check in with everybody and also talk to you about an article posted by our friends at the Tennessee Lookout. A rift is taking over House Democrats despite minority status. Rep Shaw, other Dems could face primary foe for voting in favor of the restrictive House rule. Obviously, everybody knows about the Justins, knows they were expelled, reinstated. Now we have our first session going on since they were reinstated. And already the very first week, Justin Jones was silenced by Republicans when he called Speaker Sexton drunk with power. As if to prove his point immediately, they voted to silence him, to cut him off, leading to headlines like this. Let's be honest, nobody who's following the Tennessee House thinks that that's a false statement, that the Speaker Sexton is drunk with power. He is, of course, drunk with power. There just aren't many people willing to say it out loud. And now Sexton has adjusted the rules so that the minute you say anything like that, you can be cut off. So yes, that's drunk with power. He also took Justin off of an education committee. Important because Governor Lee's main priority is this voucher program that's going to have to run through those committees. So yes, Sexton is drunk with power. Of course he is. These rules have made it easier for a speaker drunk with power to silence Justin. Why is this article focused on Democrats and not on Sexton? Well, the reason is because one of the Democrats, Representative Johnny Shaw, voted in favor of these House rules, which limit the length of time you can speak, make it easier to cut the Justins off. Speaker Sexton, the lesson he learned from expelling the Justins and having them sent back is he's got to be even more draconian, even more authoritarian. Johnny Shaw, in this article, said to the Lookout, according to Sam Stocker, that he isn't totally okay with the rules, but contends the quote-unquote confusion that's erupted in the House since Jones and Pearson took office has, quote, hindered many Democrats from expressing themselves and, quote, getting things done for their districts. And, Johnny Shaw's a nice guy. I've known him a long time. But what happened during that special session showed this entire country and the world, frankly, how authoritarian and draconian things can be here in Tennessee under Speaker Sexton and Governor Lee and this Republican supermajority. And that was extremely important for people to see that. And the only reason they saw that was because Pearson and Jones with Gloria Johnson stood up, went to the well, and took one on the chin, showing the world what was going on in Tennessee by the backlash, by the response that happened. That was a really important thing. So Johnny Shaw to call that confusion because they've now further tried to crack down on the Justins and say that it has hindered Democrats from expressing themselves. Well, I've been following this legislature as closely as anybody for 5 years, and there's a lot of Democrats that had a lot of chances to express themselves that have not taken it. And the Justins have not stopped anybody from expressing themselves. They have just stood up and expressed themselves as they were sent there to do. So I think Johnny is quite misguided leveling these accusations at the Justins. And then the other thing that I take issue with is this getting things done for their districts thing. Now, I may be wrong. Give me one bill that the Democrats have passed. I would be hard pressed to come up with one, and nobody follows this closer than I do. There may be some symbolic bills of naming stuff and some coloring around the edges going on here or there, but meaty, serious bills that move the needle for the people, that stuff gets dismissed as socialism by this House GOP supermajority and gets blocked. Red flag laws, blocked. Raising the minimum wage, blocked. Paid leave, blocked. Blocking them from getting things done for their districts. What are y'all getting done, Johnny? I think it's important to push back against this idea that what the Justins are doing are somehow a distraction. What they're doing is the work. For them not to have the support of everybody in their caucus, I think is a disappointment. And I don't think it's just Johnny. I think Johnny's the one that voted that way and is now becoming the face of this discussion. But to me, this takes the focus off where the pressure needs to be. Speaker Sexton and an out of control authoritarian House Republican supermajority. So then Shaw goes on to say he's willing to bend to get a little harmony. What does that look like? Does that look like just playing along with an out of control supermajority? They're probably laughing when they hear that because they're not bending at all. They don't bend. Goes on to describe the laws or the rules, gives lawmakers 2 strikes for being out of order, going off topic, which is another issue because off topic is totally at the discretion Speaker Sexton. Leader Camper offered a rule this session. You have to explain why someone's off topic if you call them off topic. And of course, Republicans said no. Sexton does not have to explain himself. He does not have to justify himself. Absolutely not. They voted that down. Sexton could just say, off topic, bang the gavel. They all vote to silence Justin. They move on. And this is what Johnny voted for. And by Johnny voting for it, now Republicans can say, well, the rules were voted on in a bipartisan manner. Gives them cover. So it's damaging. Shaw points out it is obvious the rules are designed to keep Jones and Pearson under wraps. And then he says when this all began, they wanted to be expelled. And I think all of us were working hard to try to keep them from being expelled. Now, I know the Justins, they didn't want to be expelled. They wanted to do what was right. And if they were expelled, so be it. Perpetuating this narrative that they wanted to be expelled is damaging. It helps the detractors of the Justins. They did not want to be expelled. They wanted to do what was right. They were willing to lose their seats. And I think, frankly, they're to be commended for that. And it's important to remember that right when they did it, their caucus telling them get off the floor. They were trying to quiet them. Maybe they were worried they were going to lose their seats. Maybe they didn't want them rocking the boat, whatever it is. But at the time, they didn't have the full support of the caucus. This is more of an example of someone in their caucus still not fully supporting what they were doing, even though I think if you polled Democrats in Tennessee, they would have the vast majority support in this state. And I think people want to see more of that, not less. And so that's why I think this vote by Johnny Shaw is so unfortunate. He goes on to say he further believes Jones and Pearson like the cameras. Do they like the cameras? I think they see the cameras as a useful weapon and maybe their only weapon in terms of pushing for progress. Sure, they're not shy. They're both good on camera. Absolutely. And then he says, when you're on camera, you need to be getting something done other than causing a lot of confusion. And again, I take serious issue with the idea that all these 2 guys are doing are causing a lot of confusion. They are causing a lot of friction because they're pushing back against an authoritarian regime. But I don't think they're causing confusion. In fact, I think they're clarifying a lot for a lot of people. I think they're clarifying what's going on in our state for a lot of people. And frankly, I think the one who's confused about what's happening here would be Johnny Shaw. Seems to think if he just goes along to get along with these Republicans that he's going to get stuff done. And I would be hard pressed to come up with a single bill Johnny has passed of substance since I've been watching. This isn't personal. I like Johnny Shaw. I've known him a long time. I ran for Congress. Bolivar was in my district. Johnny was very supportive of me. I appreciate it. But I'm not going to sit here and not say anything about this kind of pushback against what, in my eyes, is the best thing Democrats have going for them in Tennessee. Stockard saying Black lawmakers have worked for years to move the legislature in a different direction. And Shaw says, you don't get up and trash people every time you stand up and expect to get something done. Calling a drunk with power speaker drunk with power is trashing people. Well, we just have a different definition of that. But I don't think Jones is trashing people. I think he is speaking the truth. Sexton is drunk with power. I know Republicans that believe that. A lot of them, actually. One party is silencing the other, has all the power, will not pass any bills that the other one wants, is standing in the way of a lot of majority-supported bills in our state, using voice votes to silence people, gerrymandering this state to hell. And we're going to sit here and talk about civility by the Justins and trashing people. I just think we're totally missing it. And if you want to talk about creating confusion, this is creating confusion, not what the Justins are doing. Shaw then says, is he concerned about facing a primary opponent this year? He says, I'm a man of faith who believes if you do what's right, right will follow you. And if he loses, so be it. And then he both sides is it and says, all I can say is the chaos needs to stop on both sides. Well, again, I don't see anybody on the Republican side trying to stop the chaos. I think all they're trying to do is crack down further on the Justins who are speaking up for what's right. Patty says, how is speaking truth trashing? Exactly. Karen says, both sides coming from Republican is gaslighting. Yes, it is, but it's also gaslighting coming from Democrats. And Johnny's not the only one that has said that. And we've called it out when others have said it too. I know the district pretty well. Johnny is, I think, popular in his district. It might be tough for a primary there, but generally speaking, I do believe that that's something that may need to happen. If there are Democrats who are not willing to push back and stand up to what's going on here, maybe they do need primaries. Then Sam called Justin Pearson, who said he has respect for Shaw, not only because of experience as a Black lawmaker, but as a Black American in this country over the course of his lifetime, the legalized subjugation of Black people. So he's being deferential to Johnny's age, which absolutely Johnny's been around a long time. Well-respected man, pastor, I believe. And again, nothing personal here, but he did say disagrees with Shaw and other members who feel silence and patience will improve efforts on issues such as gun violence, helping the poor, standing up for areas which the state has failed to invest. He used words such as docile and acquiescence to describe, it says, lawmakers such as Shaw. And this is Justin saying basically what I'm saying here, which is, where has playing nice gotten them? What have they passed? We are at the bottom in poverty, at the bottom in infant maternal mortality, at the bottom in per pupil spending. We have the most anti-LGBTQ bills in the country, #1 in medical bankruptcies, the highest percentage of disenfranchised Black voters in the entire country. So yes, Justin makes a good point here. Where has this gotten us? And he says, I'm not serving in the General Assembly to be silent or be silenced, because that is thwarting the democratic principles and ideals associated with the First Amendment and a representative democracy. And he says that at least 2 provisions of the new House rules eliminate debate and votes. At the same time, Republicans say more debate is needed. He's looking for candidates statewide who align with the vision of a more just Tennessee, interested in stopping gun violence and working for the poor. I don't believe people who are silent are going to continue being of service to the people of their districts, because the people in their communities do not want the status quo to continue. Now, please, by all means, if you think he's wrong about that, comment and tell me if you think he's wrong. I have a feeling you think he's right. I personally believe he is right on the money. And again, Johnny says they're causing confusion. No, that's clarifying. That's clarity. What Johnny Shaw is doing by voting for rules we all know are wrong and draconian and authoritarian, that is creating confusion. We need to push back on this stuff and call it out. And that's what made me want to hop on here. It says Shaw isn't the only one to face a primary opponent. Joe Towns, a Memphis Democrat, was recorded as abstaining, even though he was absent that day. Sam Stockard wonders if Towns is going to get a primary. I just want to come on here. It's unfortunate that there are fissures in the Democratic caucus when obviously they're dealing so much from the Republican side of things, but there it is. And when Johnny put his name on it, voted for these rules, he sort of invited this conversation. I think what the Justins are doing is essential. It's important that we have people in there standing up and calling things out. This is what happened when Justin Jones did that, talking about the rules, and he called him drunk with power and they silenced him.
So I want to make clear that these rules are not about Democrats versus Republicans, but it's about each of us as members and a speaker drunk with power. In these rules, a phrase that keeps
Representative
occurring.
Reagan, you're recognized.
I asked the clerk to read from Mason's manual about disparaging comments for other members. Call the gentleman from Davidson County to order.
We are voting. A yes allows the representative to continue speaking. A no vote calls him to order, and we move to the next person on the list.
Ayes 20, 68 nays.
Reagan standing up and silencing Justin for calling the speaker drunk with power. What you see there is the process they now have in place, whereby any Republican, if they don't like what Justin is saying, can call for a vote on the board. Guess what? They're going to get the majority of the votes and they're going to be silenced. And then now they have rules that say if that happens enough times, they're going to be silenced longer and longer and longer, days, weeks at a time. This is what Johnny Shaw just voted for, lending your support to something like that. Democrats need to push back on the draconian authoritarian nature of what we're seeing. To say that this is a distraction is just not the case. This is not the distraction. This is important. The distraction, I think, is insignificant bills Republicans are going to let Democrats pass, act like they're playing nice. Anything significant is not passing. Now you have headlines showing people what's happening. The narrative is that this speaker is drunk with power, and those are really important because they tell the world what's going on in our state. And so, I mean, I think this is really what needs to keep happening, and people need to run to join this fight. I just think we need people up there calling it out, calling out the nonsense. And I think it's important for you guys, let the Justins know that you support them. If you do, let Johnny Shaw and others who are maybe not being as supportive of them know that you're watching, clarify things for them that they seem to be a little confused on. What the Justins are doing is essential. I wish that every Democrat would see that and get behind them. Thanks for following. We'll see you next time.
Tennessee.